Mr. Spy. You and I, we're gonna play a game. You're gonna tell me what the Norks know about us, and I'm gonna hurt you while you do it. This game will be a lot more fun for me than you, I'm afraid. Question is, will it be quick? Or will it be really, really slow? Just scream as loud as you want, okay? No need to suffer in silence.
So I finished playing Homefront the Revolution yesterday evening, and I'm going to be talking about this game. And since at this point I've gotten used to first talking about the bad sides of a game and then addressing the good one, this is how I'm gonna do it here as well. I think I'm gonna make it my standard anyway. So okay, without further ado, let's talk about Homefront the Revolution. The first thing that I want to address that really pissed me off is the fact that we have a silent protagonist. Now, Ethan Brady is the guy you're going to be playing as. He's not going to talk during the main game whatsoever. And I personally hate that from the bottom of my heart. Let me explain. Some people defend this by saying that, yeah, silent protagonists allow you to immerse yourself better, to imagine you're the character better. That is absolute nonsense. That is absolute bullshit. First of all, I think they do it just to save money, cutting costs by not making him talk. There are no advantages from this. As a matter of fact, there are disadvantages. But let's just address this specific issue with the better immersion due to the fact that the protagonist doesn't talk. Now, if we imagine that we're supposed to immerse ourselves better because we don't hear him talk, first of all, none of us is mute. So that's the first part where it would fail. But then none of us is a superhero. And quite honestly, how many of you out there have been in a situation where they had to fight overwhelming hordes of enemies with weapons and defend their country and liberate it? None of us, nobody. So you can't really get under his skin, and giving him less character traits, like you don't give him a voice and therefore an opinion, that doesn't make us relate more to the character. What it does is it creates a pawn. Anything anyone does or says, he's basically gonna just agree to because he can never object. He doesn't have a character. You just destroy the potential for a good character. And there's gonna be more to this that I will address later, but I just want to say this. In this first sequence that I showed you, he's actually captured and about to be interrogated because they think he's a spy, which he is not. Of course, if your character could talk and was not an absolute idiot, who just cannot speak or in any way, express an opinion or feelings or anything really, he would just say, hey guys, I'm one of you. I got my ID here and I was sent by this guy. I am one of you. And the problem would be resolved. But here he has to basically rely strictly on luck to survive this one. And ironically, literally right at the beginning of the game, he's about to be interrogated for the first time actually, because the one that I've shown you in this video is like a second interrogation for him. When he's about to be interrogated for the first time, he gets really lucky that he gets saved again because he cannot say anything. So the interrogation will not go good for him. 2 people died before him because they kind of couldn't give information. So, in any case, this is also known as a Deus Ex Machina, when basically the creators of the game create a miraculous escape to a situation from which looks like there's no escape. In his case, there wouldn't have been much he could have done if he had not been saved, since he cannot talk, so he can't even stall for time. So yeah, silent protagonists are shit and I hate them. I think it's absolute bullshit. It should not exist in games. Stop saving money in AAA titles. You can't afford to get another voice actor, and we'll see that later. Now, next step I want to talk about, since this is kind of an open world game, it's not an open world game, but you get these segmented maps, and on these maps you can actually walk around freely. So I will call it open world, but it isn't really that much. Still, you got a lot of freedom, and in these segmented maps you have to scavenge. That's one of the ways for you to earn money. So if you want to scavenge, you gotta go open different things, which always look the same, and it doesn't, the scavenging just feels like it's stacked on. It didn't feel satisfying for me. Like, imagine a game like DayZ, for example, where you have to scavenge and you look for stuff. It's all random and you actually physically see the stuff that you pick up. In this game, you just get information as to you picked duct tape or you picked cigarettes and stuff and you sell it. You never have an idea of the value of stuff you're carrying. And scavenging is important as well because you need to increase your money in order to buy new gear and stuff like that, which is fine. But I personally did not enjoy it so much. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I've seen it worse. And I don't think I would like to see something like in Skyrim or in Fallout where you actually open a bar and then you loot things individually. This is not an RPG, but I don't know, I just wasn't a big fan of the scavenging. Yeah, there are some parts which you can find like chemicals separately and stuff like that, but the scavenging didn't work for me. That's all I want to say. You get these tiny side missions, so you have to liberate outposts in this game, and once you liberate an outpost, you have like a table with usually 3 side missions you can pick up, and these side missions are really dumb, and they usually involve you having to take pictures and stuff, which is the lamest thing because you have to press a button to pull out your phone, then select the picture application, take a picture, select to go out of the application, select to go out of the phone, and then you can move on with playing. It's boring. I don't see the point of it. It's ridiculously easy, and it's just there basically to pad time, to make you waste time. So what you should do, and what I did, is just ignore them. You'll still be able to get enough money from main missions and scavenging, even if you don't concentrate heavily on scavenging. You will not need these boring side missions. I just don't get the point of them. You know, if you're gonna give me side missions, give me interesting side missions. It's always generic things that repeat. Go there, take pictures of that, go there, kill this guy. You know, it's not one specific guy. They tell you like kill commanders and whatnot, you know, kill drones. Just, you know, it's like MMORPG kind of missions where you have like kill 20 of this, bring me this, you know what I mean? A single player game of this kind should not have such boring side missions. You just cannot afford it. Give me something, give me a bit of a backstory, give me, you know, make them interesting, because ultimately what they did is, although there's very little effort in these, the effort's gone to waste because I did not do them. The only one I did was, I mean, I did like 2 actually, but you know, since they repeat, I didn't do more, and these 2 were just to see what it's all about, where I had to take pictures of stashes and stuff. So I was not a fan of these missions, and I don't think anyone out there will be. So if we move on, we will notice that the NPCs are very inadequate. Now the game has a lot of NPCs, and that's good because the world doesn't feel empty, but they do strange things. You have this beggar, for example, who asks you for money, and you can give him money, and if you have to, essentially these maps, you have to always free the outposts and just, you know, do good stuff for people to raise their spirit. You have like a percentage, and when you raise their spirit to 100%, you can activate a riot. And so you need to do good stuff, and giving beggars money is one of these things that is good, you know, that you could do. You could help people who are being controlled by the Korean police and stuff like that, but in any case, doing good stuff is important. So you give this beggar money, and that's the funny thing. If you bump into someone, the people will very aggressively tell you to straight out fuck off. They're like, get lost and pay attention, idiot, and stuff like that. But since you are from the resistance, when you play the game, and these segmented maps I spoke of, there are basically 2 types of them. You have one segmented map, which is basically a combat zone where there's no order, and you walk around shooting people and stuff. And then there's the second type of zone where there is order established by the Korean army. You're basically in the city, and you have to be incognito. You can't walk around with your gun out. You gotta keep your gun holstered. You gotta be careful not to stay too long in front of the Koreans. You gotta try to hide and blend in because they'll recognize you, because they have control of this part. And they're the civilians, especially at the beginning, before you have motivated them. They're actually anti-resistance, you know. They don't like you guys because they see you as people who can cause them trouble. They've already had enough trouble. They just want to have a peaceful life. And so when they see you and recognize you, and pretty much everyone from these normal people recognize you instantly, they're like, oh, hell no, fuck you, resistance, we don't want to talk to you and stuff. So you will talk to a beggar, for example, you give him money, and he will say something like, oh, thank you, mister, that's so generous of you. And then literally as he finishes that phrase, he will switch to his other pre-designed phrase where he's like, oh, you're resistance, fuck you, you piece of shit. And that is that's so hilarious, because essentially you just gave him money, he's thanking you, and halfway through the thank you he insults you and tells you to fuck off, although you were super nice to the fucking beggar, you know. So that is hilarious, but it's a negative thing because they're a bit inadequate. Also, all the characters have very wooden animation, so motion capturing was pretty much not an option here. They have weird ways they turn their heads when they look while they open doors and stuff. The way they move their arms and their legs, it all looks very stiff and wooden. It's not the end of the world, but it is kind of weird. The game does tend to be somewhat buggy as well. It will actually have moments where just character models that are dead, that should be ragdolling, will freeze in midair in some contorted pose, you know. Then you have, I saw a drone which was blown up and was just stuck in the sky, you know, as if it's still there. So there were these minor bugs, and then there were bugs that affected my gameplay where I had to reset the last checkpoint because something had bugged and it wasn't working. I had done whatever was necessary and it didn't advance, but luckily it was not game breaking, and luckily the game checkpoints you in a very good manner, so you will never have to replay too much. You lose like 5 minutes maximum because everything in this game is fast, but I'll talk about this in the positive side. Now, so there were a few bugs and I had like 2 or 3 crashes throughout my playthrough, which is absolutely okay. You know, it would be better if it didn't crash, but sometimes I'm not even sure if it's the game or my PC just goes nuts for some reason. I don't know. I can't tell you. In any case, the game crashed for me. Not all games crash for me, so it could be the game, but it was not a big deal again because of the good checkpoints, but I thought I'd have to address it. Now, something that annoys me regarding our main character, again, is the fact that he cannot swim. And not only can he not swim, he drowns immediately. There are a few maps where there's water, and sometimes you can't notice it, especially if it's dark, and you're just gonna plunge in, immediately get a death screen. It's annoying. Again, checkpoint is fairly close, not a big deal, but it's just annoying. You think to yourself, why not? Why cannot he swim? That idiot, you know, he's a killing machine. He survives a million shots, but water, that's his mortal enemy. You know, he's like drowning. You say, water, my mortal enemy. Anyway, then we have the thing that I really like, that I really hate in such games and happens, is backtracking. Now, it's not very often, but sometimes you will actually have to go back. And I told you it's segmented zones, so you have like zone 1, then you have tunnel, zone 2, then you have a tunnel, and zone 3. And each tunnel is a loading screen, okay? So imagine that you have your HQ in a specific zone and you have to go back to it. That means this doesn't happen very often, okay? This happens like 2 or 3 times in the whole game max. But it does happen. And that annoyed me because that meant for me that I had to go from zone 1 into one tunnel to go to zone 2 where my base is, talk to somebody, then he sends me to another zone where I need to go again with a loading screen. So you get like 2-3 loading screens in very short succession, which is pointless. They could have just made a cutscene and put you in a place where you had to be. Again, not too big of a gripe, but it is there, so I thought I'd address it. You will notice that with this game I have several minor gripes, and the biggest one really for me is the fact that the protagonist is silent, you know, is not cool. And another thing that I don't like so much is escort missions. Now, they're done better. They're not so, the guys you gotta protect and escort are not so easily to kill. So you will mostly have no problem with it, but it's always, you know, I did fail them a few times because I wasn't defending them very well, but it's also partially because I'm a rebel and I don't want to conform to the game's rules. And I'm just going to kill guys and see what happens to test if the guys can die or not. So when you try to defend them and you don't try too hard, you're going to have a good time and you're going to manage to defend them. I play the game on easy, obviously. I mentioned it several times. Most games I play on easy. There are some games where I will willingly go for a hard mode, like for example, Metro I went on hard because that's how it's meant to be played. I think it was called Ranger mode, etc. But most games I will play on easy mode because I'm more interested in having a good time and just, you know, seeing the story, and I don't like too much of a challenge. If a game becomes too hard for me and kills me too much, I get pissed, and that, you know, lowers my enjoyment of the game. I don't see a point for that. So anyway, I play on easy and I didn't have difficulties. I died a few times, but that's mostly because the health. You see, you have a health bar. The game doesn't explain that well. That's the biggest problem. You have a health bar. It's on the left side, and at first you have this HUD, and the health bar doesn't really look like one. I was unaware that this is my health bar. I died several times, and I thought, why did my screen get darker and flash like in other games? You would expect that. And I think there's a bit of an effect, but it's very minimal, and since your health is drained fairly fast, you often don't have time to react if you want to hold on to that, because when it starts flashing, that's when it's usually almost too late. So you're gonna have to get used to looking at a health bar that does not regenerate. So that's more old school. Now, I don't have a problem with this. I felt it worked well. I got medkits and it was okay. It wasn't a big problem, but I just wanted to mention it again because this is something that some people do not like. Now, another problem that I kind of didn't like was that the story failed to captivate me throughout the main game, simply because the story is told in secretive way, and you know that there's a backstory. You have these side characters, and they kind of have their own backstories, especially the female one called Dana you saw in that intro that I put there, in that intro clip. It's not the intro of the game actually, and she has some kind of a backstory. It's never really explained in detail. Okay, you can assume things. It's up to you, but it's never really explained in detail, and that's something that I was missing. And also, you know, a few characters will come in the game and they will die. And don't say that I'm spoiling stuff. It's too generalized. You can't know who it will be. And but in any case, you know, a few characters will come and then they'll die. And it's one of those situations where I didn't even know this character. You know, why should I care? But they try to make it like it's a sad moment and stuff. It doesn't touch me as the player. I don't know this person. They were not likable in any way. They were not, you know, someone I would associate. Some games really do it well, and some games just do it because they thought it would be cool, but it's not. So that's something, you know, the story just, you know, is not that good. Although I do like the premise. I like the idea of it. I mean, North Korea manages to use economic prowess and technologic advance to take over the United States. I bet that fat fuck from North Korea, Kim Jong-un, is probably gonna jack off while playing this game thinking, oh yeah, that's my future. I can see that happening. I'm sure if you ask him about the game, he's not gonna like it though of how it ends. But still, in any case, I think the premise is very interesting, and I'm going to move on now to the positive aspects of the game, because that's basically something that I want to address, and I don't really have that many more complaints. Actually, I don't think I have any, but if anything comes to mind, I will address it again. But on to the positive side now. Enough about the bad. The one thing that I really loved about this game, especially after just having finished Just Cause 3, is that this game is fast. You have fast-paced combat. You have small maps, so you move from A to B really quickly. You take over outposts really fast. You don't need to do a million things in most cases. There are these small types of puzzles that are around some outposts that require you to figure out how to climb there or how to activate something. And that's pretty cool, you know. Sometimes you need to use a tiny RC card to hack something, stuff like that. I approve of that. I don't want to waste too much time with these things. They're not nearly as repetitive as other games, and not even comparably as repetitive as Just Cause, because the outposts are, the military ones are all similar to an extreme extent, but the other stuff that's like smaller is often very different. You have these puzzles that you need to do, and the other things are very distinguishable actually from one another. So I found them to be fun. I enjoyed taking over these outposts, and I like that the hacking is fast. You know, pretty much everything's fast. Now I did mention that you have these two types of zones. You have a type red zone, then type yellow zone. Actually, there's another one, but it's really essentially a type yellow zone again. So the red type of zones I mentioned already are basically an all-out war zone where you can walk with your gun out and shoot everyone you see, and there's nothing to worry about. And the yellow type of zones are the controlled zones by the Koreans and by the North Koreans. And there you have to, again, hide your weapon and stuff. And if you do shoot someone or you get seen while doing that something bad, they will actually raise an alarm, and that's where they will spawn infinite amounts of soldiers. So you can't hold your ground. It's pointless, because they will keep coming till you're dead. And you have to go and hide somewhere. You gotta hide in a dumpster or in a portable toilet, you know, or in something like that. You gotta hide. Or you could just get out of line of sight if they don't find you, but they kind of always know where you are, so in most cases they will still find you no matter how good you're hidden. Your best choice is to hide in a container. In some rare cases, getting out of line of sight has worked for me. However, there's something negative here again, that once you have this emergency, you know, this bar, this alert bar, and it depletes. And if you're hidden in a dumpster or something, it depletes much faster than if you're just out of sight. But the thing is that, and this might be good for some people, the thing is that when it depletes, when it's completely zeroed down, the guys who were chasing you will still continue to look for you in that area. So if they see you, they'll recognize you because they remember you, and they'll immediately sound alarm as well. And it's bad for me because you get in that dumpster and you wait there for 10 seconds, and this is a fast game, so 10 seconds feel like a long time of doing nothing. And while you're in the dumpster, you can't exactly pull the phone and read the SMS you get, because you get like SMS from people who are a bit more of an exposition, telling you stuff. For me it was boring, so I didn't really read them. but you can also find diaries and stuff that are to read if you're interested in that. So while you're in the dumpster, you can't do anything outside of just stand there. So that's really bad in my opinion. They could have allowed me to read the SMS while waiting, instead of I actually physically took my phone and did some browsing while waiting, because it was kind of boring for me, and that's a bad sign, you know, that's bad design in any case. But so you have to wait for the searching guys to also disperse, because if you go out of the dumpster, they see you, it's all over again, you know, you gotta start from the beginning. That's kind of annoying, so that might easily double the time you actually have to wait, and instead of 10 seconds, you might have to wait 15, 20 seconds, which, let's be honest, in a fast game shouldn't be the case. But okay, other than that, you know, in these two districts, it's pretty interesting because, as I mentioned before, you have to liberate the districts. So you liberate the individual outposts, and then once everything's liberated, the whole district is liberated. Now, while doing this, you have to do these good deeds again to win the hearts and minds of people. And there's this percentage indication, you know, from 0 to 100%. And once you get to 100%, you can activate a riot and usually do the last mission available in this district. Until then, you can't do it. So the thing is, and that's something that I really liked, that as you are progressing through these 100%, you will physically see changes in the district. More and more people around you from normal people will start, you know, rebelling against the man. They will start to attack the Korean soldier, and at the end you even see everything starting to get destroyed, you know. Before you even start the riot, people will already kind of be rioting. Also, you hear constantly loudspeakers telling people to, you know, at the beginning they're saying just general things like, the rules are generally like this, and we advise you join our collaborator program, which they call differently, of course, but you know, general stuff on the speakers. And then as the rioting progresses, there's the voice in the speaker is going to be more and more threatening. At some point, it's essentially going to say all rioters will be shot and stuff like that. So, you know, you actually see step by step how your actions affect the zone and how it changes. That I found is done very, very well, and the atmosphere in general is very good, you know. Unlike Just Cause, again, and I'm sorry for making this comparison, but it's the last game I played, and it's a game that in my eyes failed utterly in pretty much all aspects. In comparison to Just Cause, the people look oppressed. Even in the cities where you have a more calm atmosphere, when you get in the districts where you need to hide and stuff, even there it's full with police forces. You still see people constantly being searched and kind of being mistreated. You see, you know, you have a poor part of a district that looks much worse than the central part. Although these are really small districts, they managed to divide them, and you just see the oppression. You see that this is essentially a way of an invasion that has happened, an enslavement of people. You know, these people are not equal. Also, it's funny, you often hear North Korean stuff. The North Korean, when they attack, they always scream like retards, and I found that funny. They speak in their Chingchangchong language, and so, you know, I found it very funny. That appealed to me. I like that, and I found that the presentation is excellent. They really, in the war zones, everything is ruins. You have constantly, you know, patrols. And here's another good thing that I really enjoyed. The resistance is always there. So you never feel alone in the war zones. And in the other zones, you see resistant guys as well, but they're hiding most of the time, you know, because they can't start an all-out fight. But in the militarized zones where there's fighting, the resistance is always there. Even before you take an outpost, as you go into an outpost, because I tried to sneak, you have stealth in this game, and I love stealth. So I will try, if possible, to do an outpost stealthily. It's very difficult. You will always be seen almost. Very rarely have I managed to do something in a full stealthy position, you know, when I actually wanted it. It's mostly because of the fast pace that I'm kind of impatient. If you take your time and do it slowly, you can do it, but I'm just not patient enough for that. But so even as I enter the outpost, I see on the map the blue dots. The guys have seen me go in, so other guys are coming as well, you know, from the resistance. And if they're North Koreans, they will actually fight them and stuff, distract them. Not when you ask them and stuff like that, but they will just do their own thing, you know. You constantly see resistance fighters, and they are actively supporting you, and they're actually quite useful. They have good weapons, they're good fighters, and they're excellent for distracting. So they will do a good job, you know. That is something that is so rare in games, because the games don't want to hold your hand. They usually don't want you to be helped by these AI companions, who are all over the place, because the resistance is essentially a form of an army. But in this game, there are lots of them, and they will actively help you. And that is great. I really like that because it gives another level of immersion. Not that you're a lone warrior, but you're really part of something greater, and really works well. So in any case, great. Really love that. I also like the fact that we have a day and night cycle, which just goes on and it switches constantly. You can also sleep to initiate one or the other, but the day and night just gives you a bit of variety, and it gives you also it's hard to tell if there are advantages to sneaking during the night. I think they don't see as well, but I'm not quite certain, because again, I just didn't do it that well. Now, another thing that is generally very important is if a game is fun to play, and this game definitely is fun. I actually enjoyed the game. I enjoyed customizing my weapons, and the cool thing is you can buy these customizations like scopes, and you can buy just you buy a red dot scope. You have a red dot scope available for all your weapons, even simultaneously, and you can switch things dynamically. Even during fights, you press X and you just choose what to switch. You have, for example, a rifle which you can add a mod to, and you make it into a marksman rifle, which is essentially a anti-material version of a sniper rifle. And then you can put like a long range scope and suddenly snipe guys which are very far, so this is very convenient. The fighting is fun. The crafting is okay at best. For example, the Molotov cocktails I never used. I just didn't find them useful. Their area of effect looks big through the animation, but it actually affects guys only if you pretty much hit them straight on or right in front of their feet. So that was quite useless to me. Explosives are useful against a variety of things, and hacking modules are basically necessary for many things. So that is all fun. I liked it, and I enjoyed the game. I like, for example, again, Just Cause. I liberated, because I'm kind of a completionist kind of guy. If you give me outposts to liberate and stuff, I will try to liberate everything, even if it's not necessary. So I liberated literally everything on every map. So, and you gotta imagine that's a lot of time. I played this game for over 2 days now, I think, and I played yesterday. I played all day. I played since I woke up to the evening. I just enjoyed the game a lot, and it was great. And that's really what's the most important thing about the game, that you enjoy it, and that you have fun while playing it. Now, again, the story at the end, some things happen that I don't approve, simply because it feels like they try to make it more dramatic and force it. But okay, the story is important in every game for me, but if the story isn't that good, the gameplay is excellent, I will still like the game ultimately, and this is the case here. They had a good concept for a story, but it was not executed that well. I think it still was done okay, but I feel like they wasted a bit of a chance. In any case, let's talk about the DLCs. You have 2 different DLCs, and these DLCs are actually excellent. I find them to contribute towards the story much more than the main game, but they're very compact. We're talking about an hour to an hour and a half each, depending on how difficult you play it on and how fast you do things. Obviously, you could stretch it more by trying to kill more guys instead of going for objectives so fast. But if you've just played the main game like I have and then switch to the DLCs, you're gonna breeze through them for sure. So it took me about an hour for each. So you gotta decide if that's worth your money. But the DLCs themselves, actually gameplay wise and especially story wise, are really must-haves, because they fill in the beginning, basically what happens before the beginning of the story and what happens after the end of the story, and they all relate to this guy you meet right at the beginning of the game. His name is Walker, and Walker is essentially basically the heart of the revolution. He's some kind of hero of the revolution, a leader of theirs, some kind of figure who does speeches and stuff. At the beginning of the game, he saves the protagonist, in the main game I mean, and he gets injured, and then you try to get help for him, and he gets captured. And the whole game, you try to free him almost the whole game, but you never manage in the main game, okay? So the DLC shows you what happens before, right? Pretty much right before he actually meets you and saves you for the first time and gets injured and abducted. So that's very interesting, because at the beginning of the game you just hear, there's a guy, he comes in, saves you, and then you hear this is the guy who's like a hero of the revolution, and you lose him. So you have very short interaction with him. And the great thing about that is that, the DLCs are done have a better production value in my opinion than the main game. First of all, you play once as Walker himself in the first DLC, and Walker obviously talks, he's voiced. So, you know, the whole non-speaking protagonist problem is solved immediately here. And then in the last DLC, you know, the Aftermath DLC, you play as Ethan Brady again, and this time Brady talks. And this is awesome because Brady has a nice voice, you know, he's voice acted really well, and him talking gives him so much character, it changes the game for me completely. He actually gets a direct order to do something and he straight out says, no, I won't do it. I don't think that's right and stuff. And this contributes so much to the story, and it gives you the feeling that you have a proper character on your hands. And the funny thing is, the one who gives him the order is Parrish, and Brady, you know, objects to the order. Parrish is another guy you'll meet. He's a very important figure. And I remember Parrish saying, I preferred it when you kept your mouth shut. Which is, you know, a good joke regarding the fact that he was silent in the main game. And really, I think that they probably realized that this is not so good, and they added in the DLC, and the DLC therefore is significantly better for me personally, because I'm a guy who really loves stories in games. I find games to be art, and I think that the main character should have a proper, you know, character as a matter of fact, and should have a voice, and he should behave in certain ways. And that's why this DLC, especially the Aftermath DLC for me, was the DLC that showed me the game the way it was meant to be, the way the whole game should have been. It doesn't take much, guys. It doesn't take much, and when these games opt out of this, it really hurts me, because this actually is a good game. I enjoyed this game a lot, and I think that, again, that they missed the chance to make the story even better, to make it deeper. Perhaps they could have given us a leader. You know, they could have put Kim Jong-un in there and let me kill him. That would have been so cool, you know. Just like in Wolfenstein back in the old one, at the end you get to kill Hitler. So that's something that game designers tend to not want to do so much, and I get it, especially because they're like, maybe we'll make a sequel. You know, if you kill Kim Jong-un here, who's gonna be the next bad guy? We gotta think of one, etc. You know, also they don't like to let you kill people who are existing or still alive. If you remember the Black Ops situation, I don't remember the guy's name anymore, but in Black Ops, you have a guy who is actually looking and named after an existing criminal boss who is in jail in the States. Okay, so I don't remember his exact name. You can Google it. But this guy from jail, since they portrayed him as a rat, you know, as a snitch, he was turning on everyone and he was bad. And in real life, this guy had to do with drug smuggling, murders. They proven that he's killed several people and stuff. So he's a really terrible person. But from jail, he actually sued the creators of Black Ops because he said, hey, you make me look bad. And he's actually much, much worse than what they portrayed him as. Although they portrayed him kind of as a coward. But in any case, you know, so people tend to not want to create games or other media which features real people who especially are still alive, because they could in some cases bitch and complain, and it could also lead to things like the game being banned in different countries and stuff. So it's a complicated situation. I get it, but story wise, in any case, the game has a lot to learn, especially from its own DLCs. Brady should have been able to talk, but other than that, I think it was a great game. I think you would like it if you played it. It's very nice. I forgot to mention that you even get to drive bikes in the militarized zones, but they're not very cool to drive. It's sometimes part of puzzles and stuff. But all in all, game is cool. I can recommend this game. I think most people will enjoy it to its fullest without any problems. I think this game is sadly not getting enough attention, and it definitely should, because it was an excellent game. And that's where I'm gonna be thanking you for watching this video. I hope you have the time to take a look at my other ones. All of them are worth a shot, although not all of them are so good as this one perhaps. It's a matter of taste. But I'd be very grateful if you took a look at them as well. Thanks a lot for watching.